Well, the year is drawing to a close and some Eastern Cape schools still do not have facilities promised to them. For example, one in Mount Frere does not have a roof. Let's try to get some answers from Eastern Cape Education's Thabang Monare. He's responsible for school infrastructure in the province. A very good morning to you. What's behind the delay there in offering the most basic infrastructure requirements to these schools?
Good morning to you, Jane, and to the viewers everywhere. Jane, we have, in answering on the specific school, the school roof has been fixed using their own maintenance budget. But indeed, we have huge infrastructure backlogs that we could not address all the schools in the intended timeframes that we had to address them.
Okay, when I was there just under a year ago in Mount Frere, the school with no roof, I was promised by the Department of Education, we were promised on TV that the roof was on its way to that school. It's still not there, so I'm not sure what you're talking about in that context.
Jane? Yes. Jane, what we have done after we assessed all the schools that had the unfortunate incidents of damages due to hailstorms, in the assessment we identify certain schools that they could use the monies within their allocation, the maintenance budget. On the other side, we did write a letter to the Department of Cooperative Government and Traditional Affairs requesting funding of the schools that were affected by disasters. Though that we did not get a positive response on that score, we did, within the departmental funding, address some of the school using the same funds that the school received from the provincial allocation. So indeed, we did not do everything that we could, but within the same money we had, the zinc roof we fixed within the maintenance budget of the school.
Well, I mean, nothing at all has been done. Nothing. The schools that had no toilets, they are still don't have any, so they had to go into the bush veld to go to the loo. There are schools there in that same area that have pit latrines. They were promised that they were supposed to go years ago. They are still there. So nothing since we have been there has changed. And I mean, I can't understand what is holding it back. How can the department not have the money to fix this? If that is not an emergency, what is?
No, Jane, that is totally incorrect. Since you would remember yourself, Jane, that in 2018 there was a presidential program announced, the Sanitation Appropriate for Education. The Department of Education in the Eastern Cape is a huge beneficiary of that program. I mean, 37% of the allocation of that budget, an amount of 2.6 billion is dedicated to the Eastern Cape. Currently, we've got 472
okay, well, where's the money going? Because it's not going to the schools. It's not going to the pupils who need them. So where's it going?
We've got 191 schools under construction through that program. And therefore, also as the provincial department, I mean, for the past 7 years, we've been able to deliver 599 projects dedicated to sanitation alone. So what I'm saying, whilst there are constraints with funding and the speed in which infrastructure is being delivered, but some of the gains have been achieved in eradicating this. If you just take the figure of 1,598 and the amount that is required to eradicate this, it is going to take some amount of time to eradicate all the infrastructure.
Okay, well, you've had more than a decade to do it, and it hasn't been done. So what is the message to these kids who are suffering? You have to sit outside, cover their heads with their books because of the heat. How long? When are things likely to change for them? Because at this rate, you can understand why so many children don't want to go to school, why there's such a fallout.
Jane, this is a function of funding, and this is a function of constraints within government. This context that I'm giving you predates the current disaster we're in. And as you might know, that there were further cuts in the budget in terms of infrastructure. This province experienced that as well, 230 million being cut from the budget by the National Treasury to fund the fight against the coronavirus. So some of the gains that which we would have at least by now achieved are further.
But I mean, the budget hasn't always been cut. So what are you referring to?
No. As the province, we've had for the past 5 years reductions in the budget. This is before the cut. And as you would know, that infrastructure itself does need to be taken care of. Other than building new infrastructure, there's existing infrastructure that still needs to function. So as we are receiving a reduced budget because the fiscus has been shrinking for quite some time, then we further on get the cuts. So this both from the national and the provincial sector has affected the implementation program.
I mean, do you think these areas of people who possibly don't have a voice are taken seriously? I mean, when we tried to get an interview before we went there with the Department of Education, nobody was interested or really knew what was going on. The mayor rocked up and had no idea what we were talking about. He was angry that I didn't ask him about roads. There aren't even roads there. He was upset that I spoke about the school with no roof and the fact that there was no water. And I get the feeling that many of these rural areas are just not taken seriously. People don't have a voice. What do they need to do to be taken seriously?
They are, Jane. I mean, the program that is focusing on eradicating of inappropriate infrastructure in the main is targeting the eastern part of the province, the former Transkei area. There are huge backlogs even in the eastern part of the province.
But there's still mud schools, excuse me interjecting, still mud schools.
These backlogs, Jane, can I complain? These backlogs, we have costed them to an amount of 82.3 billion to eradicate, and working on a 1.5 billion budget annually, you can appreciate that that is going to take some doing. As we're eradicating this backlog, there are challenges in the implementation, I understand, but a majority of our project is residing in the areas that you are referring to as the outskirts, the rural areas of the province.
Okay, we're going to come back in a year's time and see how far you've got. Thabang, Monare, very good to talk to you. Thanks very much.